Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe. Alright guys, for today I figured we'd do a Halloween special, mostly focused around vampires, as that seems to be the main theme of the horror cinema podcast over on our horror channel. So with that in mind, I decided that I'd put together this little video analyzing the nature of vampires and one of the most interesting vamps of Krynn. So without further ado, the thing with vampires in Dragonlance is that they have all the typical hallmarks of vampires from the Bram Stoker period. That is to say, they're tied to their coffin and their native earth, and they must always return to these resting places during the day. They can summon bats, rats, and wolves to do whatever they want, and can even spawn lesser vampires and undead and force them into their service. Likely they have the same hypnotic abilities as from Dracula, and tend to die under sunlight and certain holy symbols. That said, there are many that speculate about the origin of vampires. Some claim Chemosh inflicted it upon Krynn as a blight on mortals, similar to how he created ghouls, with other rumors saying that it was an experiment done by a black robe wizard who kind of screwed up and accidentally transformed himself into a vampire when trying to become a lich. Naturally, vampires have to survive off the blood of their victims, and are often forces of great evil, as all vampires and undead are evil by their very nature, as they are creatures formed in the mockery of living beings. Let's examine the most important vampire in the lore of Krynn, Kryl Shadestalker. Kryl is noted for haunting one particular manor, the manor house which is called Sanguine Manor or Eld Manor. It was at one time the home of a Lord Thenel Eld and Lady Karen Eld. Many of the servants of the house were turned into undead monsters. Kryl was not always a vampire though. Having fallen in love with a woman called Marissa, who did not desire him in return as she was the bride of Aaron, the son of Lady Eleth of Tantalion, he, as punishment for her, turned her into one of his vampire spawn, hopeful that she might want to stay with him. And though she did become murderous, as she did become a vampiress, she was made to slay her beloved Aaron. Marissa, though, decided to get even with Kryl by seeking out vampire hunters sometime later, rather than living forever as his bride. Bitter, Kryl kept the ring Aaron had given to Marissa to remind himself of this great loss and of his hatred for all humans, especially beautiful young women who resembled his lost love. The ring, though, was later stolen by Tika Waylan, who stole it off his finger in the town of Daring's Way. Kryl sent his minions to recover the ring, but they never returned. Sometime after this, Allaran Waylan, Tika's father, was to seek out Kryl and try to put an end to the hunt for his daughter, and challenge him to a game of chance for ownership of the ring. The stakes being that if Kryl was to lose the bet, he would forfeit the ring and let Allaran and Tika go. If he won, he would claim not only the ring, but the lives of Allaran and Tika. It's not actually revealed who won in any of the stories, with sources in-universe saying that Allaran won fair and square and that Kryl honored the bargain only grudgingly, which does not explain why Allaran never returned. Still others are prone to claiming that Allaran cheated and Kryl swore revenge, and that this is why Allaran has never returned. As to Tika, her, along with the ring in question, were sent as safety and solace. I should think that if Allaran did cheat at this bet, then it is very likely that he suffered the punishment of becoming one of Kryl's undead slaves, but that as Kryl could not lay claim to Tika, he had to content himself with what he got. That said, it's a great shame that we never got to see a proper story involving Kryl versus Tika and Caramon after the Legends trilogy. It is also highly possible that Allaran did not cheat, as Kryl is bound by his word to an extent. It is very likely that he could not break the deal. If it did, that might explain why Allaran did not return, as Allaran is dead, as per the agreement if he lost, but Kryl has to forfeit his claims to the ring because he lost as well. Or it might be possible that Kryl won, but couldn't track down Tika, so we're left at our impasse. The only thing I could hope for is that Kryl Shadestalker gets explored some more and we get a Dragonlance-styled Dracula story, with Kryl coming after Tika, hopeful to turn her into his bride, and for Caramon to end up having to match wits with a vampire, and that we might get some other characters involved in the story. I should hope that Weiss and Hickman revisit this idea, but there is definite possibility, so if you want to do a campaign involving this sort of thing, do go ahead. It's quite interesting having a vampire involved in Tika's backstory. It is important to note that Tika came to Solace only because of the actions of Kryl Shadestalker, so he's indirectly extremely important to the lore. So without further ado, I do hope you all stay tuned for the next video. It may very well prove to be a continuation of our podcast of Dragons of Autumn Twilight, as we have reached Darkenwood, which is a fairly horror-centric set of chapters. So if you want to stay tuned for that, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Sky trying to tear down Sturm, along with the High Claris Tower.